Hey guys, Michael D'Angelo here. Today I wanted to do something a little bit different on the channel, something I don't normally do, and that's a comparison, a shootout really, of various microphones for the drum set in a jazz context. Now when COVID-19 hit back in March and we had to do everything from home, well, it's late December and we're still doing everything from home, when COVID hit, I found myself doing more remote tracking and things from home than I ever have in my entire life. And even now, as I'm finishing up my doctorate, I have to do all of my final performance-based projects as recordings from home. So while I've always been interested in recording and I've always had kind of a very bare bones setup, this summer I expanded my recording setup to basically the entire drum set, so I'm able to do remote tracking and recording for people from the comfort of my own home. And so in that time, I've done a lot of research, talked to a lot of mentors and friends that are recording engineers, watched a ton of YouTube videos, and have acquired some different microphones. And what I wanted to do today was demonstrate those microphones and kind of put them head to head. So if you're getting into recording or you're looking to expand your setup, there's something here for you, maybe to guide you in a certain direction. So before we get into it, a couple of disclaimers. One, this is probably going to be a long video with some talking, so I have some timestamps in the description. So if you want to jump around to the playing or just, find one particular microphone and hear that, you can totally do that. And B, this video is not sponsored in any way. None of these companies have reached out to me about doing a video like this. No one has sent me anything for free, so I've purchased all of these microphones with my own money, and I'm just sharing with you my experiences. And something that I found in looking up microphones and drum set recording and recording techniques is that there's a ton of resources out there. So I thought to myself, well, why would I record a video like this? Well, I found that, especially when it comes to drum set recording, there's kind of a certain drum set sound that is demonstrated in all of these videos. It's more of a rock or a pop fusion, kind of gospel kind of sound where the drums are tuned lower, 22-inch bass drum with, EMADs and muffling. There's a microphone on every part of the kit. And, while those are really helpful, and for people that are looking for that kind of sound, it's really helpful, I didn't find a ton of resources for jazz drum sets, where the philosophy behind recording is a little bit different. My first mentor and somebody that I look up to still to this day, Rick Dior, is a fantastic drummer and recording engineer. And I've had many conversations with him about recording jazz drums. And his sentiment is shared with a lot of other engineers. And that is that the microphones are meant to capture the organic sound of the instrument as a whole. And so, Rick just uses a stereo overhead mic and a bass drum mic, and that's about it. So he doesn't go to the lengths to mic every single component of the drum set. He just likes a very natural, organic sound. And I've actually talked to recording engineers about, why do they put microphones on every part of the kit if the drum set is kind of one instrument? And the reason for that is mainly insurance. This is something I haven't really seen talked about a whole lot. And really, the sound of your drums come from the overheads. And everything else, the tom mics, the snare mics, the hi-hat mics, are merely there in case you record the drum set and you're listening back and you're like, oh, I could use a little bit more presence from the toms, or maybe a little bit more snare sound, or I'm not hearing the hi-hat in the mix. And so the engineer has that flexibility to be able to maybe emphasize or adjust a particular part of the kit. Most of the time when I'm listening to some mix downs in a recording studio, some engineers tell me, yeah, I have all your tom mics off. I'm not even using them. So really, I think we can get caught in a assumption that, I'm watching a recording session or I'm at a recording session and I see all these microphones. I have to have this many microphones and I have to use them all in my mix. That's not necessarily true. So for the purposes of today, I'm just doing one mono overhead, and then the bass drum microphones. And all of the microphones are being recorded at the same time. I have all 4 overheads placed as close as possible, and same with the bass drum mics. And so you're going to hear basically the same performance, but with each different microphone. So let's talk about the microphones. So I have 4 overhead mics. I have 2 small diaphragm condensers and 2 large diaphragm condensers. And in both of those categories, there's kind of a budget pick and a more step-up professional pick. So for the small diaphragm condenser, I have an SE Electronics SE8. And for the step-up, I have a microphone that's pretty popular on the internet. It's the Earthworks SR25. For the large diaphragm condensers, the budget pick is an Audio Technica 2035, which was actually the first mic that I purchased when I was getting into recording, and a Neumann TLM 102 as the step-up. Okay, so for the bass drum, we have 2 industry standard microphones, the Shure Beta 52A and the AKG D112. Now, this D112 was my father's. He bought it back in the 70s, so it's got plenty of years on it. It's been in a ton of smoky clubs, so it definitely has a vintage vibe to it, but the general sound of the D112 is still there. And then also we have an Earthworks SR20LS, I believe, that's the model number, which came as part of a kit with the 2 SR25s that I have. So I'm going to demonstrate all of these microphones. The way that I did it is I did one recording with all of the mics running so I can play them back to back. So you're getting the same performance, but you're going to hear each microphone individually. So for the overheads, I'm going to play a 12-bar blues, play some time, do a little bit of soloing, maybe some trading, so you can just hear what everything sounds like with the drums and the cymbals and how they all work together. For the bass drum, I'm going to play kind of a straight eighth thing, just with a little bit more bass drum activity, just so you can hear how the bass drum sounds. I'm going to solo the bass drum mic and also integrate it with one of the overheads, just so you can see how it works in context. Then we'll do some rapid fire back-to-backs where I'll play all of the drums by themselves, go through all 4 mics, then the cymbals and all 4 mics, and then do some bass drum stuff with the 3 mics, and then we'll have some final thoughts. Okay, really quick before we get started, I know I'm talking a lot. I know people are going to have questions about the gear, so I thought I would just address that really fast. The interface is a Focusrite Claret 8 Pre, which is recording into Logic Pro. There's no EQ, no compression, no post-processing on the microphones. You're just hearing basically the sound of the microphone and the sound of the preamp. The only thing that I've done is leveled out all the microphones so that they're the same volume, and I put a limiter on the master track just to prevent things from going above 0 decibels. The drums are my trusty Pearl Reference Pures. I've had this kit a little over 10 years now, and it's still amazing, still sounds great. The snare drum is a Pearl Sensitone black nickel brass, 6.5 by 14. All of the sizes of the drums, standard bop sizes, 12 by 8, 14, 14, 18 by 14 bass drum. All the drums have Evans coated G1 heads on them, including the bass drum. And the only muffling I have on the bass drum are felt strips on both heads. The cymbals, I have a pair of 15-inch Old K hi-hats that were made in Istanbul. They're a mismatched pair, so that I think the top is from the 60s and the bottom's from the 70s, but they sound great. This ride cymbal is very special to me. This is a 21-inch custom ride cymbal by PGB Artisan Cymbals based in Montreal. Philippe is a fantastic cymbal smith, so I would definitely check him out. And he made that cymbal to go with this, which is a Meinl 24-inch prototype, but it is now the Foundry Reserve Thin Ride. So this sounds incredible too. And this cymbal you've seen a lot is a Meinl Byzance 20-inch extra dry thin crash. So all these kind of work together really, really well. So, okay, let's get to the playing. All right, so I hope that you enjoyed all of those comparisons. I had a lot of fun doing this, especially setting up all the mics and just kind of hearing them back to back. And I have a couple of thoughts about these microphones. Really, honestly, they all sound good. They have their own sonic quality to them. And really, it's kind of amazing to me how really far budget microphones have come. The Audio Technica is only a $150 microphone. And really compared to the Neumann, obviously the Neumann has its own sonic quality, but in terms of the two back to back, you have to really hear those differences. You have to really be conscious of them. And I think that's a great thing because that means that people can really get into having high quality recordings on a budget. They don't have to go out and buy, thousands of dollars worth of mics to get a pretty good drum sound. Now, on the flip side, that also brings up a point that's mentioned a lot is that really in order to get a great recording, you need to have a good drummer and a good drum sound. And so the drummer has to play with dynamics and balance and musicality, and the drums have to be tuned and the cymbals have to be nice. No microphone can really fix, a really ringy cymbal or a drum that isn't in tune. And that's not meant to be discouraging. I don't want people to get that impression. I actually think it's pretty encouraging because if you're getting started and you're maybe putting a single mic over the drums, you can listen back and really hear what your sound is. You can hear, maybe my right hand's a little bit louder than my left, or I really lay into the bass drum, or I really hit the snare drum hard. Or I find that I maybe hit the floor tom, like those kind of things. You can really get some honest feedback on your playing and on your sound. And so I think that's really, really helpful. And that's why everyone recommends to record yourself when you are practicing and when you're playing. So I think it's pretty encouraging. So in summary, I think the best microphone is the one that resonates with you. So it's really a matter of personal preference. Like I mentioned earlier, I think it's amazing that there are so many inexpensive microphones out there that sound good. So really, kind of what your budget allows and what you're hearing and what sound you like will inform what you ultimately purchase. And really, something that I do, kind of a side note, is when I go to recording studios and I record, I talk to the engineers. I ask them questions. Most of them are really receptive to that. They like to talk about what they do. And so I talk to them about their microphone, setups and their techniques. And I also write down what kind of microphones they use, and I have them in a notes folder on my phone. And so, if I listen to a record and I'm like, oh, I really like the sound of my cymbals on that record, I could see, oh yeah, well, they use these kind of overheads. So I think that kind of information is really, really helpful. Before we go, I just want to say how I'm using all of them because I'm using a lot of them in conjunction with each other. So I'm using the Earthworks as my overheads, as an XY. I have a stereo bar. And then I have the SE8 on my hi-hat. And then I have the TLM 102s on my toms because they have a really high sound pressure level rating, so I could put them there. An SM57 on the snare drum. And then either the Earthworks for my 18-inch bass drums or the Beta 52 or the D112 on my 20-inch bass drums. And really, you could hear the big sonic differences between those two mics. So really, if I'm doing more of like a big band jazz related recording with the 20-inch, I'll use the Shure. But if I want something really punchy for like hip hop or funk, I'll use the D112. And then if I want the option, I'll put the Earthworks on there too. And then I have both mics to choose from, right? So again, it's all about options, not necessarily having to use them. So I hope this video was helpful. Leave a comment. I'm going to do the obligatory YouTube thing. Leave a comment down below. Which mic was your favorite? Are there any mics that you have and you love that you want to let other people know about? And I have a lot more videos coming now that I have all this recording gear. So looking forward to making them. So see you guys later. Thanks and have a very happy new year.